You think the internet flattened the world. You think a Zoom call just completely erased borders.
Right, everybody assumes we're living in this boundless digital utopia.
Exactly. You probably assume that ideas and money just flow freely from one side of the planet to the other, like at the speed of light. But you were completely wrong.
Oh, completely. I mean, the reality is structurally broken.
Yeah, there is a ghost wall. It's this invisible, almost impenetrable fortress, and it is quietly suffocating the largest flow of wealth on the entire planet.
It really is.
And today, for this deep dive, we're going to dismantle exactly how it works. Because, we're looking at a massive stack of incredibly precise trade data here.
Yeah, crafted by some top economists, James E. Anderson, Catherine A. Malott, and Yodovi Yota.
Right, and they mapped out Canadian bilateral services trade from 1997 all the way to 2007.
Yeah.
They tracked 9 major service sectors. They've literally traced every single dollar.
And, what their data reveals is just a shocking geopolitical truth. The globalization you believe in. It's essentially a myth.
It's a total illusion.
Exactly. We spend all our political energy arguing over physical tariffs, right? You watch the news and you see politicians fighting over taxes on steel or restrictions on cars.
Right, the stuff you can actually put on a cargo ship.
Yeah, but physical goods are just a tiny fraction of our economic reality. The services sector like consulting, finance, engineering, education, that is the actual engine of the modern economy.
And this data proves that this engine is trapped. It's trapped behind walls we don't even have the eyes to see.
Because the digital age promised us this total friction-free ease. But the economic reality, it just delivers brutal, invisible friction.
Okay, well, I need to stop you right there and just push back for a second.
Yeah.
Because I look at my own life, and I feel like I am living in that digital utopia.
Sure, most people do.
I can video call Tokyo right now. Instantly, for free, in high definition. I use software built in Sweden. I watch videos produced in Brazil. So how can you tell me there's a ghost wall when my daily life feels completely globalized?
Well, because you're confusing consumer entertainment with actual business-to-business economic engines.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the underlying communication technology is absolutely frictionless. You can call Tokyo for free. But try actually selling a specialized consulting service over that exact same video call.
Right. That's where it gets messy.
Try closing a commercial contract, navigating the liability insurance, securing the legal compliance, and, actually transferring the capital.
So the infrastructure is there, but the transaction itself is just totally blocked.
It is entirely blocked. And it makes absolutely no logical sense when you look at the technology, but it makes perfect economic sense when you look at the data.
Okay, so to understand this ghost wall, we really have to completely change how we think about money. Because money does not behave like a digital file.
No, not at all.
And here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. Because according to this research, money actually behaves exactly like the planets.
Yeah, we have to ask a really strange question here. Why does astrophysics, specifically Isaac Newton's basic law of gravity, perfectly predict the most complex, chaotic human financial network?
Let's unpack this for a second, because, we all learned Newton's law of gravity in grade school, right?
Yeah.
Big objects pull hard, distant objects pull less.
Exactly. It explains the solar system. It explains why the tides roll in and out.
And now you're telling me it explains my wallet.
Yeah, economists actually call this the gravity model of trade. It is literally the physics of money.
The physics of money, I love that.
Big economies pull in more trade. Distant economies pull in less trade. And for decades, we knew this worked for physical things.
Right, because shipping containers full of cars are heavy. They cost fuel and money to move across an ocean. So physical distance creates physical friction.
That makes total intuitive sense, right? Neighboring countries ship more trucks back and forth simply because the gas is cheaper.
But here is the massive face slap in this research. The authors took this model, which was built for heavy physical objects, and they applied it to invisible, weightless services.
And it worked flawlessly. The mathematical correlation was literally 1. 0 error.
0 error. Wait, you're saying a mathematical formula from physics predicted human behavioral choices with absolute perfection?
It is terrifyingly precise. Think about what this means. You probably assume human economics is all about free will.
Yeah, I think I choose to buy a service because of clever marketing or because I found the best provider.
Right. But the fact that this mathematical model perfectly predicts the flow of invisible services means our economic behavior is governed by hard, inescapable laws.
It's not just random human choices.
Not at all.
But wait, I still don't understand the mechanism here. I get gravity for physical things, closer planets pull harder, but an email weighs nothing.
Sure, yeah.
A digital architectural blueprint sent as a PDF weighs 0 grams. Why does physical distance matter for a digital file?
Because you are assuming distance is only about physical space. Distance is not just geography. Distance is cultural friction.
Oh, I see.
Distance is regulatory friction. Distance is a complete lack of trust.
So the physics of money dictates that a weightless service still suffers massive drag over distance.
Precisely. You are sending data processing across a border. You are sending legal advice. But you are sending it across this void of different privacy laws, different spoken languages, different credentialing systems.
Different court jurisdictions if something goes wrong, right?
Exactly. And that creates a massive invisible drag on the transaction.
So if gravity applies to invisible services, what actually happens when those services hit a national border?
They vanish.
Just disappear, right, into thin air.
Completely. In our hyper-connected digital age, we expect trillions of dollars to just wash over borders.
Yeah.
But instead, the moment a service hits a border, the money evaporates.
Wow. And the researchers actually measured this evaporation. They call it constructed foreign bias, or CFB.
Yeah, which sounds like a really dry academic term.
Right, so we need to translate it into what it actually is. It is basically a measure of mass economic destruction.
The data shows that actual cross-border service trade is just catastrophically lower than it should be. We have to compare it to a frictionless benchmark.
And think of the frictionless benchmark as a theoretical world where borders simply do not exist.
Exactly. If you need an accountant, you flip a coin, and you are just as likely to hire one in London as you are in your own hometown.
In that theoretical world, money flows like water.
But in the real world, the money hits the border and dies.
And the best way to understand this is what the data reveals as the 7x drop. This is the specific statistic that completely shattered my understanding of global trade.
It totally defies all common sense.
Let's trace a real transaction here. Let's say you want to deliver a physical crate of red wine across an international border. It seems hard, right?
Oh, definitely. You have to put it on a physical truck, drive it hundreds of miles, stop at a physical checkpoint.
Pay customs fees, clear agricultural inspections, actually unload the physical boxes.
It is heavily, heavily physical.
But providing remote architectural consulting.
Oh.
Or running data analysis for a foreign client over a secure cloud server. You would think that is infinitely easier than shipping the wine.
Right.
But the researchers found that the barriers for invisible services are 7 times higher than for physical goods.
7 times. That is wild. Agriculture, mining, heavy manufacturing. Those physical crates cross international borders 7 times easier than an email containing professional advice.
It's like pouring a bucket of water and rocks through a sieve. But the holes in the sieve only let the solid rocks fall through, and they entirely block the liquid.
It's totally backwards.
Exactly. You assume the digital world is fluid and the physical world is stubborn. But the exact opposite is true. The physical is fluid, the digital is blocked.
But, we have to ask why this wealth just disappears. Like, where is it actually going?
Yeah, is it just missing in action?
No, it is being actively blocked by the friction we just talked about. The friction destroys the trade before it can even happen. The regulatory hurdles, the legal uncertainties, the lack of mutual recognition of credentials, it creates this massive graveyard of unmade deals.
So a company looks at the headache of hiring a foreign service provider and simply abandons the transaction.
Exactly. They just walk away.
Now, if you are listening to this, you might be thinking, well, okay, this is just standard taxes. Governments love to skim off the top. They are charging tariffs.
Right, but global tariffs on services are mostly sitting at 0%.
Wait, 0. So you look at the official trade agreements, and the official tax at the border is literally 0.
It is.
So who's charging you?
This is where we uncover the 111% invisible tariff.
This part is just crazy.
We are told globalism wiped out tariffs, right? We celebrate all these massive free trade agreements. But the reality is, when you buy an overseas service, you are secretly paying double.
You just don't get a receipt that shows the markup.
Exactly. The economists calculated the true cost of all this invisible friction. They translated all the headaches, the delays, the legal compliance into a hard percentage.
And the math is horrifying. It equates to a border tariff of between 52% and 111%.
You thought the tariff was 0. The real tariff is 111%. I mean, think about what that actually means for a business.
It means the cost for an international seller to provide a service is 2 to 4 times higher than for a domestic seller right down the street.
2 to 4 times higher just to send a digital service across an imaginary line in the dirt.
Imagine a firm in Toronto trying to hire a logistics consultant in Chicago. The Chicago consultant doesn't just send a Zoom link.
No, they have to ensure their professional liability insurance covers a Canadian jurisdiction.
They might have to retain a Canadian tax lawyer to understand the withholding taxes on cross-border services.
They might have to ensure their data privacy protocols comply with a totally different national standard.
And all of those hours spent on compliance, all of those legal fees, all that risk, it just gets baked into the price.
That is the invisible tariff, and it introduces an even more powerful concept, the compatriot dividend, or what the researchers call constructed domestic bias.
Basically, national borders generate a terrifying cohesion. They literally force you to look inward.
The data completely backs this up. When they analyzed the Canadian provinces, they found that these provinces trade with each other at 6 times the rate they would in a perfectly frictionless world.
6 times the normal rate. And when you compare that internal trade to international trade, the domestic bias is 800 times larger than the foreign bias.
800 times. The magnetic pull of your own country is absolute.
But let me challenge this for a second. Are people just naturally xenophobic with their wallets? Do they just love the idea of buying local? Is it just patriotism?
It is absolutely not about preference. It is about force. You are being forced to buy local because the invisible 111% tariff makes foreign services impossible to afford.
It is so easy to blame a buy local mentality, right?
Yeah.
We love to think it's just friendly neighborhood loyalty. But the data shows something far more sinister about local protectionism.
You think local services stay local because people like their neighborhood accountant? You think it's about going to the same golf club? Wrong. They stay local because they are trapped on an economic island.
We have to look at another metric here to really see this. Constructed home bias, or CHB. This metric measures the excess localization of trade.
It basically measures how deeply trapped a local economy is within itself.
And here is the illusion totally shattered. The localized bias for services is almost identical to the bias for physical goods within a domestic market.
Wait, let me explain why that shatters the illusion.
Go for it.
Because if the low international trade in services was just because people prefer local service providers, if it was just human nature to want to look your accountant in the eye, then you'd expect the local bias for services to be way, way higher than for a box of physical Apple.
That they are nearly identical.
Exactly. This proves that the lack of international service trade has nothing to do with local preference. It is strictly because the international walls are too high.
Let's zoom in and contrast 2 specific Canadian regions from the study, because this shows the true face of the trap perfectly. Let's look at Ontario.
Ontario is highly developed. It has massive, diverse industries. It's an economic powerhouse.
Ontario has a remarkably low isolation score. Their CHB index is 75.
They are relatively open. They trade back and forth. They breathe economically.
Now contrast that with the remote Yukon territory.
Yukon's isolation score is 8,897.
8,897. It is a staggering number.
Yeah.
But we need to explain what that number actually represents.
Right. When we say Yukon has a score of 8,897, we aren't just saying it's high. In this index, 1 represents that perfectly frictionless baseline we talked about.
Oh, yes.
So an isolation score of 8,897 means a business in the Yukon is nearly 9,000 times more likely to hire a local service provider than what a frictionless model predicts.
So Yukon is essentially a fortified castle with the drawbridge pulled up and bolted shut, while Ontario is a bustling open-air market.
But they use the exact same currency. They hold the exact same passport. They exist in the exact same country. How can one be an open market and the other be an airtight vault? It all comes down to geography and economic reality. Remoteness creates extreme isolation.
Right, because there's so much distance.
When you lack a diversity of industries locally and you are geographically remote, the friction of distance forces you to intensely internalize whatever tiny service economy you have.
So the ghost wall isn't just sitting at the national border. There's a wall around your province. There's a wall around your city. There's a wall around your zip code.
Exactly. But geography isn't the only thing building these walls.
No, it definitely isn't. Some industries build their own indestructible fortresses. And this brings us to the ultimate walls: medicine and education.
Think about this for a second. We have had 30 years of the internet. We are in the middle of an AI revolution. But doctors and university professors are still chained to their zip codes.
Why is a world-renowned brain surgeon treated like a medieval blacksmith who can only practice within a 10-mile radius of his village?
To understand this, we have to look at the industry breakdown in the data. The researchers didn't just look at services as a monolith, right? They split them up.
And health and education have the absolute highest localized bias. The walls are just astronomical. Health has a CHB of 732. Education has a CHB of 367.
They do not move. They do not cross borders. They are entirely frozen in place.
But conversely, look at wholesale and transport services. Wholesale has a CHB of 60. Transport is 129. They cross borders like the borders don't even exist.
They are basically participating in a borderless carnival.
So let's break down the mechanisms here. Why is a doctor trapped while a truck driver roams free?
Well, doctors and teachers are blocked by brutal provincial licensing cartels. They face incredibly strict credential recognition barriers.
And don't forget the government-run insurance schemes. I mean, Medicare does not cross the border.
Exactly. A Canadian healthcare provider literally cannot accept U.S. domestic health insurance. The entire systemic structure forbids it.
So a doctor in Vancouver can't easily do a telehealth consultation for a patient in Seattle because their medical license isn't valid in Washington state.
And the insurance won't pay out internationally anyway.
But wholesale and transport, they are governed by national and international agreements. The rules are synchronized.
We really have to stop and address the sheer absurdity of this. A truck driver who is driving a massive, highly regulated, incredibly dangerous vehicle at 70 miles per hour has more global mobility and credential recognition than a world-renowned brain surgeon sitting at a desk with a laptop giving a second opinion.
It is absolute insanity. I mean, if I can go on YouTube right now and watch a Harvard lecture for free, why is the actual economic machinery of the education industry acting like we're still in the Middle Ages?
Because it is digital gatekeeping. Local regulations in medicine and education act as a cartel.
They exist to protect local professionals from global competition. They are fiercely protecting their turf.
The safety regulations and credentialing requirements act as a highly convenient, incredibly durable shield for local economic monopolies.
But here's where the story takes a deeply tragic turn. Because we were actually on the verge of breaking these walls down. There was a secret period in the data, a great thaw.
Right before the 2008 financial crisis, the world was quietly melting its borders.
Between 2004 and 2007, the data shows this silent thaw. The CHB curves, the local isolation, were dropping, and the CFB curves, the foreign trade, were rising.
The service industry was finally looking outward. The digital revolution was actually starting to chip away at the invisible tariff.
We were winning. Globalization was finally starting to work for services.
But the researchers tested this data against a very specific historical timeline.
And everything froze overnight. A tragedy in 2001 poured wet cement over the global economy.
We are talking about the September 11 attacks.
Now, we need to be completely clear and neutral here. We are only looking at the economic reality. We are impartially reporting what the data shows happened to global trade mechanics.
And what the data shows is that security measures tightened violently. The global perimeter snapped shut.
The private sector suddenly had to pay massive new investment costs just to fight through new government regulatory barriers.
Programs were launched like the Container Security Initiative and the Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism, or CTPAT.
Let's explain what that actually meant on the ground. Before 2001, a consultant could basically flash a driver's license at the border and walk into a boardroom in Chicago.
Right.
But overnight, new security protocols meant firms had to invest in massive compliance departments. They had to apply for specialized work visas months in advance. They had to prove physical security chains.
They added layers of friction. They added immense wait times. They added massive compliance costs. A terror attack changed the economic fate of ordinary service providers thousands of miles away.
Wait, I need you to connect the dots here. 2 planes hit buildings in New York, and suddenly a Canadian graphic designer can't easily sell a logo to a company in Chicago. How does a physical security threat freeze digital and professional services?
Because the friction is systemic. When the border thickens for a physical truck, the bureaucratic apparatus thickens for everything.
Oh, the scrutiny just increases across the board.
Visa applications get backlogged. The baseline assumption at the border changes from let trade flow to prove you aren't a threat.
So the wet cement doesn't just catch the trucks. It catches the emails. It catches the contracts. The fixed cost of just trying to do business across the border skyrocketed.
But the border didn't just freeze uniformly. It behaved in a way that defies all intuitive logic.
It became asymmetric.
When the United States slammed its iron gates shut to prioritize absolute security, Canada did the unthinkable.
It opened its windows.
The researchers looked closely at the post-9/11 border thickening effect. They measured the invisible friction in both directions.
And they found that 5 out of the 9 service sectors faced massive new friction trying to enter the United States.
The wall went up. Transport, accommodation, other services. They were deeply blocked by the new security apparatus.
But counterintuitively, 4 service sectors actually showed a thinning effect when trying to enter Canada.
The friction to get into Canada actually went down?
Let's analyze this non-symmetrical reaction. Why would one side of the border thicken violently while the other side thins?
Because when one giant economy, the U.S. prioritizes absolute security at all costs, the sheer friction begins to ruin daily trade. It ruins transport. It ruins accommodation.
But Canada is the smaller economy and relies heavily on the U.S. market to survive.
Exactly. Canada's policies and the market's reaction actually loosened some barriers.
They had to. If both sides completely locked down, the Canadian service economy would literally suffocate.
They had to thin their side of the border to stay economically viable while their massive neighbor locked down.
It's like your neighbor installing a 10-foot electric fence with razor wire, so you decide to take your own front door completely off the hinges just to make sure somebody still comes over for dinner.
It is a desperate market reaction governed by gravity.
Why wouldn't Canada just match the U.S. lockdown point for point?
Because gravity dictates that the smaller body needs the larger body more than the larger body needs the smaller one. Canada could not afford a total freeze.
But even within the massive U.S. lockdown, there is a completely bizarre anomaly in the data. 2 massive industries somehow got a VIP pass through the thickest security apparatus in the world.
In an era of maximum paranoia, the tightest border on Earth magically parted like the Red Sea for 2 specific groups.
Bankers and students.
Despite 9/11, despite the wet cement, finance and education actually saw the U.S. border thin.
It became easier for them to cross. Why? How does a banker get through a post-9/11 security lockdown easier than a truck driver?
Because finance doesn't require physical human contact.
The money can cross without the body.
Precisely. You can route capital through a wire transfer. You can execute a multi-million-dollar trade digitally. The border security apparatus was designed to stop physical threats, weapons, explosives, terrorists.
It was not designed to stop digital capital flows.
Exactly.
Okay, I get finance. But what about education? Students are physical human beings. They have to actually travel to the university.
True, but education benefited from a highly specific, streamlined government database.
The SEVIS system.
The Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, implemented in 2003.
It created a centralized web-accessible database to meticulously track foreign students. And once you were in that system, the friction vanished.
The educational institution approved you, the database cleared your background, and the border opened.
This detail is so crucial because it proves a massive underlying theory about why services are trapped. The physical contact trap.
This is the ultimate vulnerability. The greatest weakness of the service industry is that it cannot be packed in a shipping container.
It relies heavily on human bodies crossing borders. Consultants have to travel to client sites. Managers have to oversee foreign teams. Specialists have to install systems.
We love to pretend services are entirely digital. We pretend it is all cloud computing and remote work.
But this data proves the service economy is still deeply, stubbornly biological.
If the human cannot cross the border, the wealth cannot cross the border.
Security programs hold the power of life and death over trade, purely because they control physical human movement. Programs like Nexus, right?
Yes. So all our high-tech cloud computing, all our instant Zoom calls, they mean absolutely nothing if the lead consultant gets detained at airport customs because of a visa discrepancy.
The digital economy is still held hostage by passport control. That is the ultimate face slap here. You thought the internet freed you, but the border guard still owns your digital business.
The fixed cost of exporting a service is the plane ticket and the visa approval. The variable cost is the regulatory headache on the other side.
So after looking at all this bleak data, the 111% tariffs, the 8,897 isolation scores, the wet cement of security, what happens if we actually figure out how to solve this?
What if we set the service economy free?
There is a treasure chest sitting right in front of us. We are staring directly at it.
If we just treated invisible services like we treat boxes of wine, our wealth would multiply instantly.
The economists conclude this deep dive with terrifying clarity. They ran the simulation. If service barriers were simply lowered to match the existing barriers for physical goods,
Just match the physical goods. Don't even make it a perfect digital utopia. Just make it equal to the friction of shipping agriculture and manufacturing.
cross-border service trade would skyrocket by 700%.
700% growth. It is just sitting there, locked behind invisible walls.
This is the ultimate battlefield for the second half of globalization.
Physical goods globalization has already peaked. We have optimized the supply chains. We have shipped as many cheap plastic toys as the ocean freight system can handle.
Those supply chains for physical goods are maxed out, and as we've seen recently, they are incredibly fragile.
The next massive reshuffle of global wealth lies purely in coordinating policies.
It lies in erasing regulatory discrepancies in the service sector. It means standardizing licensing. It means recognizing medical and educational credentials across borders.
It means dropping that 111% invisible tariff to zero.
If we do that, we unlock a 700% boom in human wealth.
But it requires dismantling deeply entrenched local cartels. It requires massive political will to harmonize regulations.
And that leads to a chilling final thought. As we watch deglobalization rise today, as we watch politicians on every side of the spectrum talk about closing borders, reshoring jobs, and protecting domestic industries,
We have to ask ourselves what kind of world we are actually building.
are we heading toward a boundless digital utopia where ideas and services cross the globe seamlessly? Or with every new regulation, every new security check, every new localized licensing requirement, are we just quietly locking ourselves back into the isolated, disconnected cages of the 19th century?
We are looking at that murky X-ray of the global economy.
The bones are clearly broken. The 111% tariff is real. The 7x drop is real. We just refuse to look at the jagged white line.
The wealth is waiting, but the ghost wall is holding.